Hello, my name's Justin Sage-Basant. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the Manager of Prevention Initiatives at Covenant House Toronto. Today, I'm going to speak about our Family and Natural Support Programme, which has been operating since August 2018 as a Making the Shift demonstration project. The objective of our FNS programme is to support youth strengthen connections with whoever they define as family, with a parallel goal of supporting housing stabilisation. That can mean preventing youth from experiencing homelessness, supporting successful exits from homelessness, and maintaining housing stability to reduce the risk of a return to homelessness. In this presentation, I'll provide an overview of our programme model, the rationale for engaging in FNS work, and provide 3 key lessons we've learned that have supported effective practice. First, I'd like to touch on the topic of family conflict, and I want to recognise that family conflict happens in all families. And as you can see, here are a few examples of families experiencing conflict. Like I said, family conflict happens in all families. And we know that the family conflict or breakdown in family relationships is the main reason that young people experience homelessness. And this can lead us to think only about family as part of young people's past, but not as part of their present or future. Yet at the same time, there is a parallel narrative where young people continue to place importance on their family relationships. A survey of youth accessing Covenant House Toronto's services identified that 64% of youth remain close with at least one person in their family. 71% had had contact with their family in the last 6 months, and 36% would return to live with family again if things could improve. So recognizing this reality, we want to support opportunities when it's appropriate and safe to resolve conflicts and reconcile relationships. We also want to help young people navigate challenging relationships in safe and healthy ways, or find and connect with other family members and chosen supports to strengthen their network of supportive people. The belief that relationships are important is at the core of our FNS work. Improved family relationships can, of course, prevent a youth needing to leave home and experience homelessness. But we also need to recognize that when youth are already out of home, FNS work can be very beneficial. Research has shown us that young people with strong community ties and family support are more likely to successfully navigate the transition from youth to adulthood than young people with limited or negative social connections. We also know that non-professional supports can promote positive self-identity and well-being in young people. Supportive family and social connections are also associated with increased resilience. We know that adolescents and young adults are in processes of identity formation. If a youth's community and sense of belonging is determined completely by helping professionals and other youth experiencing homelessness, how might their sense of identity differ from a youth who has relationships outside of professionals and the homelessness experience? This question really informs the purpose of our FNS work. We work with the understanding that helping youth strengthen connections with family and natural supports can prevent homelessness. It can also result in the homelessness experience being brief, with fewer negative affects and a reduction in the likelihood of returning to homelessness. Perhaps most importantly, we see belonging connection as a basic human need that provides a platform for success in other areas of young people's lives. Our programme operates in partnership with a number of youth-serving agencies, with on-site FNS support across a number of the city's youth shelters, drop-in programmes, and transitional housing programmes. This allows for low-barrier, equitable access to the programme, no matter which shelter or agency a youth may be connected to. Supporting this cross-sectoral approach is our Champions Group, consisting of frontline folks from each of the partner agencies who support the integration of FNS services at their site. The partnership model provides the opportunity for the FNS workers to provide ongoing support as a youth moves between shelters or in and out of shelters, including if the youth is to move into their own housing or lives in a family home. The FNS workers provide individualized and integrated services of family and individual counselling, coaching and skill building, and systems navigation support. As mentioned, we follow the youth's lead in who they identify as family, and with the youth's consent, their family members are included in our services. In other words, the family members are as much our clients as the young people. Here is a snapshot of the program's successes since we launched in August 2018. 335 individuals received services from the program, 208 youth, and 127 family members. 90% of youth identified an improvement in their connections to family. Just over a third exited homelessness, with 53% of those youth returning to a family home. In addition, 71 youth were able to maintain housing stability and did not experience homelessness. Around 70% of youth identify as BIPOC, and just under a quarter of youth identifies as LGBTQI. Of those youth, 55% identify as transgender or non-binary. So moving on to some of our lessons learned. First, we've really learned that there is an importance of taking a systemic lens in how we understand youth and family struggles. In our counselling approach, we draw on family systems theory, which suggests that individuals cannot be understood in isolation from one another. We are all part of systems that are interconnected and we're all interdependent on each other. None of us can be understood in isolation from the systems that we are a part of. So with this approach, we look at the whole system, the individual parts and the relationship between them. We also recognize that struggles are not rooted only in the family system and the interpersonal dynamics. Experiences across systems impact individuals and the functioning of families and interpersonal relationships. It's not as simple as saying there are good parents and bad parents. The context of multiple systems that families exist in, the influence of societal and structural factors, and experiences of marginalization and discrimination need to be considered. As a result, we strive to provide a response that considers multiple systems and the ecological realities, not only for the young person, but also for their family and chosen supports. Our second lesson learned is to provide a flexible and integrated service. We have no time limit on services, and youth may work one-to-one with an FNS worker, or choose to involve their family members, or have a combination of one-to-one meetings and family meetings. Alongside this, we have a flexible approach to the reason for referral. Some youth are seeking a return home, some are not looking to return home but would like a closer relationship. Some youth are seeking to form new relationships, possibly with an extended family member or chosen support. Of note is that many youth who access our program are seeking a safe and private space to process their family experiences. What's interesting about this is that many of those youth initially say they don't want family involved in their FNS work, and they're only looking for individual support. However, we've seen many situations where after an initial phase of one-to-one work and the establishment of trust between the youth and the FNS worker, the youth will then open up to the idea of including their family members. Our third lesson learned is about the inclusion and value that we see in involving the family members and chosen supports. So once youth agrees to the inclusion of their family members in their FNS work, our program is equally responsive to their need for inclusion, guidance, and support. This often requires our program to challenge certain assumptions about families and family members. For example, we often hear that families don't want to be engaged, that they're the root of the youth's problems, that the relationships are toxic, etc., etc. This requires the FNS staff to take on the same approach with the families as we do with all of the youth. We take a strength-based, non-judgmental approach, and we are receptive and welcoming of family members' perspectives. And we draw on the systemic approach to understand the family struggles in the broader context. I'm now going to share a short video to you that features a youth who was part of our program and also one of the FNS staff. And I think they speak really well to how our program operates.
I've always wanted to have a mother around. My whole entire life, we didn't have a good relationship at all. I never really used to talk to her just because I would remember all the horrible things that happened and I didn't want it to reoccur again. I was so angry. I had so much hatred. I was just anxious every time I had to go see her or if someone would bring her up. I grew up in the Philippines and I had my own homelessness situation there, but when I also came to Toronto, I also did have several different times where I was homeless. So I used the Family Natural Supports Program and I met with a counselor named Samson.
I remember my first meeting with April. I created a safer space for her to talk about her narrative. I mean, I just basically just listened to her, what was going on. This is their time, so I want to hear where they're coming from. You know, for me, it was creating that space, building the foundation of trust, of understanding, of empathy, non-judgment, unconditional, you know, respecting her story, and also respecting her mom's story as well. The interesting part about our program is, you know, a lot of interventions are so just focus on the young person, which is important, is what we do, but also family gets forgotten. A lot of the studies have shown that families feel left out of this process. So giving them that support, I've worked with families who felt like when I do the intervention, they're like, this is amazing that we're getting support as well. Young people do age out of our program. What happens next is important. So that's where the family comes in and natural supports.
I liked working with Samsung because dealing with me is just very difficult just because I deal with a lot of emotions. And I felt like he dealt with the best way he could just because I knew after every session, I was looking forward to the next session. The things that I wanted to hear from her during our session with Samsung was, I'm sorry. Just because it was very hard for my parents to admit that they were wrong. So hearing that for the first time was just, I guess, a reassuring feeling for me just because I knew like, oh wow, she actually felt sorry. I just needed to hear it. What didn't work in the past with counseling, the healing process takes time. He really waited until I was ready, I was comfortable in order to heal and grow and progress. I had to grow up and be like, you know what? It wasn't her, it was somebody else. And I always thought that I always had to blame somebody and I didn't have to. My relationship today with my mom, I don't feel anxious, I don't feel overwhelmed. I'm so happy now that like we just talk about things so freely. You know, you have to take a leap of faith to just give it a try. Because who knows, you might end up like me and have a better relationship with your parents. Especially my mom.
And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really looking forward to the Q&A session. Take care.